All right, so welcome. Today's session, we're talking about the healing power of nature and, specifically for teachers and how we can use nature for self-care. I'm April Zajko, and my website, my business name is Nature Inspired Teacher, and I mostly work with early childhood educators, but honestly, this is a topic that would be appropriate for teachers of any age or any grade, as well as any human, I feel like anywhere, because, nature is really it's a gentle but powerful force that we can really tap into. So the flow of this evening session is I'm going to talk for the first part, and then we're going to open it up for discussion. And I thought for my part, I just felt like this conversation could really go a lot of different directions. But I thought the way that I was going to sort of introduce the topic is just boil down some what I consider like sort of golden nuggets about the healing power of nature, and just really thinking about sort of like some big ideas. And of course, those big ideas branch off to a lot of other ideas. But one of the key aspects that I think is that teaching really is really soul-based work. And soul-based work requires us to refuel ourselves and take really good care of ourselves. And somehow we are amazing care providers, and we go above and beyond. We can anticipate children's needs. We know when families are needing additional support, and we tend to be this very empathetic, compassionate kind of person that goes above and beyond and provides, um, and takes really good care of other people. But somehow we don't extend that same kind of compassion and care to our own selves. So I think really the key to for me, and this is not me just talking at you and giving someone else advice, but for my own self to remember, is to really to pause and to acknowledge the emotional aspect, the mental kind of aspect, and even the physical toll that teaching can take. And as we are in our teaching careers for longer periods of time, there's like a feels to me some years are easier than others, but there's this kind of cumulative effect. And so learning how to care for our own self is really very important, and it's not selfish. And so sometimes when we're feeling like, oh, um, taking that time for myself, or using a sick day, for those of us who have sick days to use, it's not selfish, and really it's critical that we care well for ourselves, both for our personal health, but also our happiness in the classroom, our longevity in the field, and how we show up into the work that we do with kids. And so I know when there's a lot going on, and I perceive the world right now as a lot of different things are going on that are hard to comprehend. Things feel sometimes very sped up and overwhelming, and it's like it's even more important for me to close my device, turn off be intentional, and put the the smartphone far away, and close the laptop, and really prioritize getting outside. And so to me, a really the metaphor that I often use, and I have shared this metaphor before, but the blog post that I wrote and I have shared multiple times is really thinking about the lantern of self-care, and really knowing that it is what we put into our own self and how we can shine brighter. And so if we, sometimes we hear the metaphor of the one that kind of we hear a lot, or I hear a lot, is put your oxygen mask on first. But that implies that like the plane is crashing, right? That you're on an airplane, and before you care for others, you have to put your oxygen mask on. Well, I don't really want to be in a plane that's crashing, so I kind of like my own metaphor of the lantern of self-care. And if you think about a lantern, it's like we know the fuel that we put into this type of, old fashioned lantern. And that metaphor for our own self, to me, the fuel that we put into ourselves are lots of different things. And it's each of us has different types of things that we need in order to feel well fueled. And so to me, the fuel, it would include things like, you know, adequate rest. That's the one that's probably the hardest for me. Um, because it's like there's just so much to get done. And being someone who is multi-passionate and loves to do things, I'm thinking and reading a lot and kind of generating kinds of lots of things, like learning how to rest. Rest is to me a really big fuel source. And so we have a small group here in the live Zoom of this, but I would love for the folks that are here live in the chat box, if you feel comfortable, share some of the things that are fuel for you. What are those things that you're like, okay, I really need to be putting this in order um, to um, to do the good work in the world? And while you're doing that, I'll share a quick story from yesterday. Yesterday, I was a keynote or presenter at a farm to early childhood conference in the southern part of my state, and it's a group of educators that some of them I know very well, and some I didn't know at all. But one particular lady came up and said she was in one of my trainings way back in 20 in the beginning of 20 in April of 2020, and she said that I talked about the lantern of self-care, and this was something that really stuck with her. And then she described the things that really fuel her, and it was just really a great conversation. And one of her things that she found that was what she was really missing, and that what fueled her or helped her re-energize, was quiet. And she said, she works in early childcare, and she works in a program that starts at 7:30 in the morning. And many days, if their staffing is low, she doesn't finish till 5. And then she goes home and has her own 2 kids. And, basically she's with young humans from when she wakes up in the morning until her own children go to bed. And she said what she was really missing was quiet, and realizing like it was essential that she find quiet in order to be happy, and to feel refueled. And so, even if she were eating the best foods and doing lots of different things that take care of herself, like with missing that alone time, and then she shared, she began, she got some support from a family member so that she had regular time to go out into nature and go for a walk and find quiet. And just she talked about how even just short periods of time every day was like really something that helped her a lot. So I loved that story. Let's see in the chat. Yeah, sitting outside, eating nutritious food. I love this one. Going to the bathroom without my phone, and it's funny, and being alone. Yeah, those are really great. Um, yeah, when the children were young and I was working with toddlers, I wish that one person would follow my directions the first time. That's for sure. Noticing, taking time throughout the day to notice the little things, then taking that moment to take a deep breath and calm myself down. Yeah, I remember a few years ago, I actually, it was a lot of years, it was probably a decade ago now, but I was working in a really difficult classroom at the time, and I really wasn't getting the support that I needed. And I made this commitment to myself that there was this little teeny window of opportunity in the afternoon from like 1 to 1:15, and I was like, I will do nothing productive between that time. And I bought a electric tea kettle, and so my routine was to start the tea kettle um, before that, like right at the 1 o'clock mark, so that, actually I learned I had to even start a little bit before, but basically to have a cup of tea and just to settle, and to not try to be productive during that time. And it's hard, right? Because your to-do list, or at least my to-do list, is always like, oh, I could do this right now, or oh, I've got 10 minutes, I could take care of that, but learning just to like really to slow down. And um, so for me, I think a key to me is to kind of keep revisiting that thought and like, what is it that I need? And there, to me, there's also a seasonal cycle. So the things that fuel me in the summertime look a little different than what fuels me in the wintertime, so leaning into those things. So like in the wintertime, when I do feel like, I am still making a priority to get outside, and those kinds of things, but also learning to kind of shift the focus. And so the amount of daylight that we have shifts. So our body definitely, learning how to tune in, I think, to the rhythm, the seasonal rhythm, and kind of live in harmony with that, I think is really important. Another nugget or key thought that I like to think about with the healing power of nature is that we are nature. Like sometimes we think about, oh, yeah, I got to get out there to do this, but we are not actually separate from nature. Healing, I think, happens when we remember that we belong in nature, that we are nature ourselves. So, kind of reframing that relationship of the natural world and thinking that, you know, when we are nature. And so just like really knowing that we can lean into that and that we um, can build that personal connection and that when we're talking about um, building that personal connection, it doesn't mean that we have to go really far away or take a tropical trip or do sort of dramatic things. But it's really like those little micro moments of nature. And so some of the research suggests that um, even something like um, one of the articles that I read suggests that sort of like the ideal amount of time for weekly time in nature is 120 minutes. So like meaning like 2 hours. And so if you were a person who did go for walks, you could go for like if you went for a 30-minute walk 4 times a week, like that could be your nature time. But I have seen other research that even suggests 5 to 10 minutes of time outside can have a really powerful effect on our the benefits of you know mental well-being and sort of the relaxation response that comes from being outside. So when we're thinking about how much time we have to be out there, what if we seek like these small little bits of time, or even thinking about how we can bring nature further into our lives into I'm always thinking about like getting outdoors, and I do think that's really important, but even having a living plant in on or having a plant in the on your desk or in the main space that you are spending time in, and just learning how to incorporate those smaller little micro bits of time, like even if it's a short bit of time, like going outdoors for a walk rather than just sitting down to scroll, or taking time to pause and really, like right now is a perfect time to really tune in and listen to the spring bird songs and see, who's around now, who's coming here. And, as spring is really just arriving here, but getting my hands into the soil, and, we hear that term called earthing. And, some people believe this with like the power of, the ions from the earth, and whether or not I don't know whether or not you believe the science, or, maybe it's a pseudoscience behind that. But to me, I know when I have had like dirt time, hands in the soil or feet bare on the ground, like it just feels really rejuvenating. And same thing with just like learning to be rather than going outside and feeling like you have to do something. So, if you can make a commitment even to 5 minutes a day, and for me, it's like, if I make a commitment to be outside 5 minutes a day, and that's really like I certainly exceed that, but the times when I'm really feeling like, oh, I'm too busy, I have too much going on to do that, that's actually the time when I need it the most. And so I think it's really important for me to kind of lean into that and to know, and to, there is definitely, you know, there is something to be said for like learning how to prioritize being rather than always doing. And I'm working on a really large project right now. I'm writing a book for Red Leaf, and that's taking a lot of takes a lot of mental energy. And so I find when I go outside, like I feel like it boosts my creativity and clears my thoughts. I think that there's a lot of brain science behind it. I didn't do the research on that to share any specific things, but I just know when I feel like a bit of uh, block or like overthinking something, by going outside, it just kind of shifts something and it reignites. It gives me, I don't know, it kind of gives me fresh thoughts. And so I think, you know, really, um, not to overcomplicate it, but just to make sure to make it a priority, to get out there. In the Coyote Guide to Mentoring, uh, that it, the John Young book, he talks about the concept of wandering. You know, wandering with an A in it. And wandering is just really going outside and not having a particular mission in mind, but just going out and just noticing the things that are changing. And here in spring is really just waking up. It's a beautiful time to go outside and just wander and notice the spring ephemerals and notice the changes, the different colors of green, these pale yellow greenish colors that are just so beautiful. And teachers deserve that beauty too. I think sometimes, we put a lot of time and energy into like our classroom environment and making our classrooms really work for kids, but thinking too, like we can pour that beauty and energy that we put into making really wonderful spaces, learning spaces for children. We can do that, and create spaces for our own self. And so, in a previous article, I wonder if it's on the blog, I didn't look this up, but we talked about creating. I'll have to look for it and see. I'll share that in my newsletter if I can find it by Thursday. Um, but talking about creating an outdoor space that's specific for you. And this doesn't have to be complicated. Like it might be a special chair. It might be a little basket of things that you like to do when you're outside that you kind of take it out with you. It might be having a little, like a little special spot in the garden or a place where you walk in the nearby neighborhood, and just kind of picking a special place to go. And another practice with Coyote mentoring is a sit spot. And usually with a sit spot, we're thinking about, a place that we can go to regularly and notice the changes and the seasons that are happening. And sit spots is a really great practice, to implement for ourselves. So picking a special place in nature, you probably don't want it like right in your front yard where people are going to see where you're sitting. You want somewhere that's a little bit, maybe secluded or a little bit quieter. But what is a nearby spot in nature that you might be able to designate as your sit spot? And then commit to how frequently do you want to go there? Do you want to go to your sit spot like once a week on a particular day of the week, or make a goal to go, at least once, whatever the kind of goal that you want to make. But I think a sit spot can be a wonderful routine for our own, creating our own personal nature connection. And it it's like sort of this invitation that I offer you to explore what, a nature-based self-care practice might look like for you. And it could be just as simple as, going outside for 5 minutes a day just to notice the changes, or maybe it's making a sit spot, or maybe it's committing. Another great idea is committing with a friend that once a week you'll meet up and you'll walk in a more naturalized space. So if you have a town forest or a hiking trail that's nearby, or even a town walk that kind of goes by a garden or something like that, but making sort of, I think that making the habit of making it a part of your daily or weekly routine is really important. And one of the questions in the when people registered, I asked, was there any particular questions that people had or topics that they wanted to have covered? And one person was asking about some of the research behind it. And so I did put some research, linked some articles. Some are more academic sources about the healing power of nature, and some are some general summaries, like sort of easier to digest articles. But one of the ones that I really found interesting, and I'm just going to read a couple of the statistics because there is definitely 100% sure there is research to support. This isn't just woo-woo stuff, but there is research to support the benefits of this. Let me get to uh, the sorry, just a second. Yes. Um, there was an article from Harvard Health Publishing in 2021 called A Prescription for Better Health, Go Al Fresco, which means, out like al fresco. We often hear about al fresco eating, and that is eating outdoors, which, by the way, is something that our family loves to do when the weather is easier. Um, oh, hi, Holly. Yeah, no problem that you're late. I love that you're here. Yeah, so this is one of the articles that I read. So one of the things that spending more time outdoors is enhanced vitamin D production. And so we know that for many of us, and those of us in the more northern climates, what we need to many of us have deficiencies in vitamin D. So that increased sunlight, and that really, that it really impacts our mental health, but as well as our bone health, and protects against, it says, osteoporosis, cancer, depression, heart attacks, and strokes. Being outside, we are often more physically active, and so it encourages us to move more, and whether that's like through walking or gardening or recreational activity, but being outside, we're just more active. Like, I think that we know that. Improved mood and mental health. The natural light exposure and the outdoor environments have been linked to elevate mood and reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. There are some studies that also suggest that patients that even if they just have a view from their room, like, or they they have a view of nature, even if they're not out in it, may experience a faster recovery time and reduced pain perception. And so, thinking about sometimes when we are going through challenging times, or we have a family member or friend, thinking about, can we even, help them be in a room where they have sunlight and they have a view of some trees or some nature. And then the last one was enhanced concentration, that spending time in nature has been associated with improved focus and cognitive function. And that finding in that Harvard article says that that is for both children and for adults. So I'm going to, for those of you here live, I'm going to pop a link to that article, or the title of it, but it's the Harvard Health Publishing 2021, and it's called A Prescription for Better Health, Go Al Fresco. So that's in the chat if that article interests you. But I'm going to pause my sort of talking. I want to open it up. I think the question that I would love for anybody who feels comfortable, who wants to chime in, what are some ways that you're finding, whether you're doing it now or things that you've done in the past, to, feel connected to nature? And we'd love to hear some other ideas.
I'll go if nobody is go. If I didn't want to
No,
interrupt if somebody
yeah,
else
no,
wanted to go.
no, go ahead.
So it has been a struggle for me, really a struggle, because I've been doing this for 34 years and I primarily I work alone now. I used to have staff when I had my big center, but we are outside a majority of my day because I am a farm and nature school. So that does help, but it's hard. I was talking to my counselor a few weeks ago, just trying to figure out some stress management things. And she had me recognize what I do when I'm in a hurry. I pee in a hurry. I, eat in a hurry. I eat a lot of my meals standing up. So I've been really trying the last month, after 34 years of doing this, to really be intentional about what I'm doing throughout my day. And yes, you don't have to sleep, but Miss Shanda needs a rest, and making sure that while the kids are resting, I'm also sitting down and not, doing paperwork or mopping or whatever. And that is tough. It takes its toll on us as we age. But a couple resources that I really like, it's called Alicia Baer, author, on Facebook, and she puts out a magazine every month called Wild Kids. and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
But she has a little magazine that you can print off, and it has a nature tracker, and it has a foraging idea and stuff. But there's some things for families too, and I always print it off, and we do it in the classroom with the weather tracker and stuff. But it's kind of made me be more intentional too, as I'm like, oh,
Okay.
what's the weather today, you know? And
Yeah.
then also one in my training that I do, my gardening training that I do for Idaho Stars, I refer to, of course, Richard Louv, who wrote The Last Child in the Woods, and he has coined the term nature deficit disorder. But he partnered with some different like what the Wildlife Federation, and they created a website called thegreenhour.org.
Oh, yeah.
And that is such a great resource. And basically they're saying like every man, woman, and child needs to spend an hour outside a day for their mental health. And so that website is really good. They're also the ones that are doing that series on NBC, The Americas. And they have done research, even watching nature on TV boosts your mood and helps. So if you can't get outside, even just watching it has been helpful. But go to that website, greenhour.org, and it has a lot of great things, reminders, and really, really good activities, different things for Arbor Day and, different things like that. So I think obviously spring and summer are always so much better than, January, February, March when we're inside more or it's cold and dreary. But I do think as we age, we need to really be really mindful about taking care of ourselves because, really serious things can happen with adrenal fatigue and,
Mhm.
just really getting those burnout feelings.
Yeah.
I feel like too, when I start recognizing myself in the class I'm working with the children that I'm getting burned out, if I just start being silly or singing or being really just nonsense,
Yeah.
making up nonsense songs, like it boosts my mood too,
Right.
and then we all laugh and be silly. And I always, when they're not listening to me and I can feel myself getting really stressed. I
Yeah.
burst into song with the sound of music. The hills are alive with the sound of music. And, then they all start laughing and then they start dancing around and singing it. And I sing it in real high opera, voice. And just little silly things like that are like, I have to do this to get through my day. So anyway, and we do use sit spots a lot. I love that. So anyway, those are my little
I love
tips.
that. Yeah, and the oh, I misspelled it in the chat box, but the Green Hour, you mentioned the greenhour.org. There's also a book called The Green Hour, and I think it's that idea, like if we can prioritize getting outside and even if it can't be for a full hour, but like kind of leaning towards that, I think is really great. And it becomes one of those habits that or for me anyway, that I start to crave because it's like, oh yeah, this is something that I really need. And so I think that yeah, sometimes when we feel most resistant to it is probably the time when we need it the most. So and I wanted to read someone who had written something quite nice that she's not here. She said she wasn't sure she would be able to make it, but um, she says she sings she didn't say what song. Oh, actually she does. She says, I have a wonderful song that I used to sing with my kindergartners each morning in the forest. And she's not here to sing it for us, but it says, Good morning. Oh, yeah. Good morning, dear earth. Good morning, dear sun. Good morning, dear stones and the flowers, everyone. Good morning, dear beast and birds in the trees. Good morning to you and good morning to me. And so, I think sometimes, kind of like you were, Shanda was saying about being silly, like thinking about some of the routines that we build into our day with our children. And I know there's been times where it's like, different groups of kids like have pull us in different ways, and so sometimes in challenging years, kind of embedding something that sort of helps bring us back to center, or be mindful of singing to me is also one of the beautiful ways of sort of resetting. And let's see, let me just read here. Oh, she was talking about yeah, converse. And one of the other parts is about having connecting to others through conversations. And sometimes when we get really busy in our lives, in our work lives, we one of the first things to go is, not just self-care, but like our personal social connections. It's like, oh, I don't really have time for that, or I'm too tired to do that. But maybe thinking about prioritizing some of those important people in our lives that sometimes we forget to call or touch base with. And this week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I was thinking about how the gifts and the accolades, or the things that families do for us. To me, like, one of the most touching things is those are handwritten notes, or um, in emails too, but really handwritten notes. And I think about how special and wonderful that feels to receive those. And then I'm like, how many of these am I writing to people in my life? Not necessarily teachers, right? But, how many? So it's kind of like learning to slow down. So maybe for me, it's sort of thinking like learning to slow down and be outside, and then also taking time to do some handwritten notes and sending those. Like, that is just sort of like would be a wonderful day, weekly routine, to kind of add in, especially for me in the summertime as I have a little more capacity for things. But let's hear for some others. What else are other people doing?
I just wanted to touch base on a little bit about hurrying. And
Yeah,
it's like, it seems like we're doing it all the time. Hurry up and pick up so we can go outside. Hurry up and do this so we can do this. And even ourselves, okay, I have 15 minutes. I can spend 15 minutes working on a 4-hour project. And it's like, that doesn't get you anywhere. It's like, you need to carve out the block of time needed to do it. And I'm constantly finding like I don't finish things because I expect them to get done faster than the amount of time I've allowed for them.
yeah, absolutely. And then we feel if we only had 15 minutes, but we know it's a 4-hour project, it's that frustration too of knowing that um you want to be able to have more time. But I think about, we have a lot, there's so many things competing for our attention. And so we have this real sense of urgency and this like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And the opposite of that to me would be flow, and thinking about how do we find things, and so for some people, flow is found, in their hobbies of like needle felting or crocheting or doing a hobby where they kind of, and there's research about flow. There's a I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but the research about, really having that focus and purposeful time, that this is really therapeutic, for our bodies and for our brains. And so I think prioritizing that is, you're right, Susan, is really important. Yeah. Um, yeah, I it's another conversation that came up yesterday when I was at that conference. One of we were It was a farm to early childhood conference, and my topic was specifically about embedding early learning standards. And one of the toddler teachers that was in there was talking about how slow, like they've really tried to make mealtime rather than just like something to check off the day's list of like, okay, we got mealtime done and we're cleaned up, but to learn how to like really slow down during mealtime. And she said it's a constant struggle because there's so many tasks that need to be done. But when we're really working with children, and we were talking specifically about, getting children to be more adventuresome eaters and having positive meal times and positive experiences around food, especially for children who have, either food aversions or just have a very narrow palate already. It's like learning how to really slow down and be really present with them. And that it's so foreign. I know in my preschool classroom, at the beginning of the year, like some children just have such a hard time to even sit in their chair and eat a meal because they're used to like grazing or eating in front of a screen, like having the TV on, or a device or something, but thinking about, really learning how to be fully present and to slow down, and then to have those social connections. And I would say al fresco dining, like getting kids to eat outside, like to have a picnic, is really great. And there's something really special, I think, about even something as simple as having a picnic outdoors. Um,
We have a little girl who's 2, and I don't know how to say it, but she has anxiety. And she's anxious about whatever is going to happen next. She has a hard time just enjoying the present moment. And it
yeah,
doesn't matter what it is. She's like, okay, I'm ready. I want to be done with lunch so I can get on to nap. I want to be done with nap so I can get on to. And it's like she's totally. I mean, we will even not tell her what the next thing is sometimes. And we're thinking about, whether a picture schedule is good so she can
yeah,
guide her into this present moment concept. But that's what she needs to. We need to figure out how to have her flow and not always be ready, trying to move to the next thing.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because you know um children who are, in my experience, like children who are anxious about what's coming next, they they really thrive on the dependability and the predictability of our days, right? So if we know that there's going to be a big zigzag day because it's picture day or there's a fire drill or there's something, it's like, is it helpful for them to know ahead of time, or is it better for just to roll with it? So um in working with preschoolers, a visual schedule is really helpful, usually for children that who are, and even individual picture schedules, so that it is, or visual schedule where we can manipulate it and take the things off, and move them as we go. And so it's really clear whether we're going down or we're going left to right, either way, but that the child is in feels some sense of control, and that they know, um like, okay, we're outside right now, and it's predictable, like after we're outside we go inside and we wash hands. And so that's what's on the picture schedule. And I one year I was working with a child who, it didn't work to have, like, sometimes we have like the whole morning and then the whole afternoon on a different one, but for this particular kiddo it was just what we're doing now and what's coming next, and the adult was, had the what was beyond that. But for that kiddo it was just really like, you know in the immediate moment. But for me, visual schedules, for children I've worked with, visual schedules have worked. But yeah, I mostly work with 3, 4s, and 5s, so I'm not sure if it's the same would hold true for her.
She's pretty. She's pretty. Knowledgeable about. I think she could handle a picture schedule. I think it might help her, unless it was like because she could see what the next thing was. She would be anxious about how to get there,
Yeah,
and just focusing on, okay, well, right
yeah,
now we're doing this one. Yes, that's coming, but right now we're
yeah.
having a good time playing outside. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think having like that, building that trusting relationship, so like having that trusting relationship, so maybe like, um that when children learn, and I mean for some kids it's like, some kids get really comfortable in my classroom really quickly, and other kids it takes a much longer time. And for me, I we operate on a school calendar, so we have like these chunks of time where we have a break for like a whole week or even like 11 days. And then like the February break is a hard one because it's like 11-day break, and then we come back and it's like we're starting totally from scratch in building that connection again of like, I you can trust me and I'm going to be honest with you, and we're going to have a predictable day.
yeah.
And
I've been her teacher since she was 6 months old, and it was the same for everything. I mean, when she was learning how to crawl, she would get so anxious about being able to crawl. One day, I literally put her in the bouncy chair and said, "Just relax. Just we're going to vibrate this. You can just take, stop trying to do things." Because
yeah,
whenever she was learning all of those milestones, she was like, "Oh, I can do this. I need to do this. I need to do this." That kind of thing. It's just, and I don't know if
yeah.
it's just her personality and it's just going to be the way she is, but we continue to try to find ways to help her.
Mm, yeah, that's great. Um, I see my friend Suzette Salmon is here, and I, not to call you out, but Sue, I would love, Sue shares, she's a family home provider in, is it Illinois, I think? But she shares such beautiful images of her program and is primarily is outdoors a lot. And definitely, I know that nature is a big part. And Sue has also written a book about um, educator wellness, I believe. I would love for you to chime in and share some thoughts with us if you feel comfortable, Sue.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Happy Sunday. I joined in late, so I didn't get to hear what you were talking
Oh,
about a lot because I was really late. Sorry.
that's okay. No problem. Yeah, so we just kind of shared I kind of went through some sort of like golden nuggets about the healing power of nature and just like the daily rhythms of things that we can do for our own self. So yeah, I uh yeah, anything you want to add to,
Yeah.
yeah.
For me, operating a home childcare because I work by myself. Can you hear me okay,
Yeah,
or am I
yeah,
broken
we're
up?
good.
No, yeah. So one of the daily rhythms that I do, especially when it's warm, is to meet the families outdoors.
Mm,
So when the families come, I feel like the children's energy is a little bit better when we're outdoors, or not a little bit, a lot better when we're outdoors. I just bring my sign in because I'm old school, so I still have a paper sign in and out sheet. And
mhm,
I meet the families outdoors, and we're able to, have our classroom outdoors again because I have only 6 children. For
mhm.
an educator who there are more children, it may be a little bit more challenging, but also in a structure like that, you may have co-teachers or assistants, so you may be able to do it. So for me and my well-being, being outdoors and greeting the children is just one of the most beautiful thing that I can do, especially in this season.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my classroom, I usually have 15 in my preschool classroom, and the physical environment doesn't allow, it just doesn't quite jive. But in a different program, when I was at the Balch Nature School, we started our morning outside pretty much the whole year, except for the coldest parts of winter. And there's just something really neat to that transition. And I found that even sometimes the families felt the adults of the drop off time felt more relaxed for them as well. And so I think we get to sort of be a model also for our families of like, getting outside is important.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then it also welcomes a lot more conversation, and even the families linger a little bit more, they're seeing what we do outdoors. So then they become involved and they want to be part of the process and understanding learning in nature and being outdoors. So it's amazing being outdoors and welcoming the families outdoors.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
fantastic.
we open outdoors much of the year, not the a little bit. We start like in May to November, pretty much. And I find that the children are more able, when they do come in, they're more able to engage in the activities because they've had that
Mm.
outside time.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And they're happier, I think, and freer, and there are not a lot of rules, and they listen more even when we have the routine of coming in to eat, or or eating outside. Yeah, it's a welcoming thing.
Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Um, okay, so we're sharing out some other invite other people to share ideas of how you feel connected to nature or things that you do that help you to find that nature connection. I would love for a couple of other people to share before we wrap up.
April, one more question.
Oh
Did
yeah,
you talk about gardening already? Did the educators talk about gardening
we
and
talked a
how
little bit
relaxing
about
it
it,
is?
but I would feel free to chime in more about that. I think that is to me it's very important. But yeah, um I would love for you if you want to expand on that a little bit, Sue.
So you're in Maine, right? Or
I'm
Vermont?
in Vermont, so yeah.
Vermont. Okay. So is there snow on the ground for you still there?
So we no, we our frost-free date is June 1st. So
Oh,
like the part that I'm at, I'm like about an hour south of the Canadian border. So we can't put things in the ground yet, but things like garlic are up, chives are up, perennial herbs are are like coming back to life, and
yeah.
the leaves are just starting to bud out. So we're at the very beginning phases of, so our zone is a 3 where I'm at. 3.
Three. Okay. Because I was wondering for educators who maybe break up for the summer if they still garden with the children.
Mhm.
I am a year-round program, so we garden a lot,
Yeah.
and as an educator, that is also relaxing. And also, as the other educator was talking about, this 2-year-old who is anxious, I
Mhm.
feel like gardening may help that anxiety because you really have to wait for the plants to grow,
Right.
So I was just wondering.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, we gardening is a big part of my food education is a big part of my program, and we do gardening, but I'm in a school calendar year. So what we like to do is really think about planting things since our date that we can plant is so late, really planting things that we will harvest in the early fall, like as soon as we come back. And so
Mm-hmm.
things like carrots and potatoes kind of rise to the top. And then one of our raised beds is we have a perennial, we have a tea garden. So
Oh,
yeah, they're all perennial herbs that we can make teas out of. And really just the sensory aspect of those herbs. And so this time of year, the things that are coming up, the kids are like excited to see, the sage is
hmm.
coming back, and some of the things that are popping up.
Your sage comes back?
We this year magically it did. So it's
Oh,
I yeah, it's a uh sometimes so I've had here the this my sage came back, and same with we had what was the plant, the flower, calendula. It didn't come back, but the calendula reseeded itself this.
right. It recedes. Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
that is really prolific. Like I'm gonna have to dig some of that up and give it away because there's so many of them.
Oh,
And yeah, and then of course the mint is planted in a different area. But yeah, I think you're right. Like having a garden where it's a way for kids to really kind of slow down and notice the things,
hmm,
that are happening is really really great.
hmm, hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
what do I plant in the tea garden? Yeah, so in the tea garden, I have the um, one of the easiest ones to grow is mint, but I don't put that in the main tea garden because it really spreads out. Mint, sends these runners out, and it will really take over. It's kind of almost sort of invasive. Like some people are like, "Oh my gosh, you can't grow mint." But what I love about mint is that it just comes back so easily, and the kids love it. So I have two different, I have a peppermint, so like a true peppermint flavor one, and then one that's like a spearmint. And so those are two um plants that we have in the tea garden. And a few years ago, I took a friend of mine, she's an herbalist, uh, she Angie Barger. She has a program, a course that she teaches. It's called the Tea Garden Project, and so in the class she recommends different plants. Some of them are easier than others, but the mint is one that's just really super simple. Lemon balm is another one that I really love. Lemon balm comes back. It's easy to grow. It also can kind of get quite bushy and big, so you sort of have to keep it tamed. The lemon balm is, as its name suggests, is very lemony, and it's has I can think it's considered a nervine, so it's like a calming kind of aspect. Lavender is another one. The lavender this year didn't come back for us. Lavender, we uh, lavender is supposed to be a perennial, but it's sort of a tender perennial, I think here. And there's different varieties of it, but we have a lavender is really like, I think most people know lavender, but it's very soothing and I like it. The aroma is something that I really enjoy. I like the smell myself more than I like it as a tea. The calendula is in the marigold family, and it doesn't really, to me, make a good tea, but the plant, the the flowers are edible, and so you can I love them. They're in the tea garden, but we really just use them more for kind of a colorful accent. Um, uh, I'm forgetting some. Let's see. Oh, anise hyssop is it's sort of like a licoricey. Uh, it's also a perennial, so it comes back each year. But anise hyssop has this like um, uh, I would say like not strong licorice flavor, but sort of like a mild anisey, licoricey kind of taste. So some kids really like it and some kids don't. And then the other plants that I have that are coming up right now are garlic, which obviously isn't a tea, but we plant the bulbs of that in October and then it comes up. And chives. And chives are really fun because it's one of the garlic and the chives are one of the first things that are green in the garden. And it's kind of like, oh, life has come back. So those are the main ones that we use in the children's tea garden. Um, I know I'm missing one or two, but I could add that list into my weekly newsletter.
It's chamomile. Did you
Oh
say
yeah.
chamomile?
Yeah, I didn't say
Chamomile.
that, but yeah, that is another one. I don't I don't like the flavor of chamomile. I don't know. Like everyone's like, oh, it's so nice and relaxed. And I'm like, I don't know. It just doesn't appeal to me. But it is uh that is coming back in the garden, but it's in a different area. So I guess maybe it reseeds itself as well. I'm not 100% sure. Um yeah.
A quick question, April. Does anisotop, does it have a flower?
Yeah, it kind of grows upright and I think that the flower it's a purplish flower. And let me
Is it
just
the same as borage?
no.
Okay.
Borage is a different plant.
Okay.
Borage has borage is really pretty. It has more of like a blue star shaped flower and
Yeah, I do that one. Okay.
yeah, that one's really beautiful. And the plant is
Okay.
interesting too. But the anisis grows more upright. It kind of almost looks like a thinner, skinnier version of peppermint, but then it shoots up this like straight blossom and it's like purple. And it in my garden it comes back every year. So I don't know the varieties that I have. I also bought from local nurseries, which is a really key thing here because if you buy them from like big box stores, you don't know that you have the varieties that are really actually hardy for here.
Thank you.
But yeah, and then uh, and then we also have just some culinary herbs that come back, like the oregano and the marjoram come back, and same thing with the horseradish, which we haven't done that with the kids. Horseradish is like makes me cry. So I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to do that with the kids or not, but we're growing some of it. Yeah.
April, we have a plant that we grow and it's called Oric or Orish.
Oh,
And it's like a wild lettuce, but it comes up early in the spring and it's this beautiful burgundy purple color and it's got a
hmm,
lot of minerals in it.
okay.
But I put it in my smoothies. But once they come, they get really tall and they get lots of seeds. And so you have to get them out of there or they'll like take over. So I spread them in places around our property that I don't care if they take over. But they're so delicious and the kids love them because they're purple. And so then we've done like hammering with them and it, dyes the fabric or the paper or whatever.
Oh, cool.
But in the fall, remind me, I'll send you some seeds and because we
Okay.
get jillions, but they're so fun because you put them down in the fall and then they come up early, first thing in the spring. So
That's very cool. I would definitely love
yeah,
that. It's
called Orache or Orish.
okay. I have never heard of that. Yeah.
Is it the same as violets?
No, no, we have those too. I made jelly with the kids, with the violets, but this is just a big purple. It looks like lamb's quarter, kind of. It's just like, it looks like spinach, but it's the leaves are like big and they just come out and they just are purple and gorgeous. And I cut them every morning and make a smoothie. I do a lot of like stinging nettle and lamb's quarter smoothies. And then yeah, so it's very good. Oh yeah, there it is. There you are.
There
Oh,
we are. That's
thank
really,
you.
Yeah.
I've never seen
And
that
I've
before.
dried it. I dried it, made a powder, and then I put the powder in my smoothies. It doesn't taste delicious that way, but it's really healthy. So
Hmm.
yeah, do not pay $6.35. I will mail them to you. So yeah,
That's
do not buy
wonderful.
these seeds. I would be happy to throw. Last year I hosted an all-day farmstead class on
Oh,
my property, and so everybody put a self-addressed stamped envelope, or addressed it. And so when it came time, I filled them and mailed them out to everybody so they could mail them. So I'd be happy to share. So
Thank you. Mhm.
uh, Wendy's wondering, how do you spell the one that starts with an A? And so I think that's the anise hyssop. I'll type it in the chat. Anise hyssop. Yeah. Yeah, I think gardening and is one of those topics that, it's like there's just so much that we can talk. It's so much fun to talk about because there's so many different plants and there's just such wisdom in the plants. So one of my friends, she has Angie is a friend who's an herbalist and she has a Artemis Gardens is what it's called. So she grows all of these medicinal herbs. And then another friend of mine has a greenhouse that her name's Kim, and on her farm they do maple sugaring, and then in the spring, she focuses on medicinal and unusual varieties of plants. So it's so neat to go to people who really have an understanding of the plants in
Mhm.
your region. So
Mhm.
if you're thinking about growing, even if you're just growing a few plants, definitely encourage you to think about going to those local growers because it's going to be better suited for your region, and you can tell them, I work with young kids, and then they're going to get excited and tell you all of their favorite plants. And it's just, yeah. And then it goes
Mhm.
on. So,
I didn't know sage comes back because I've never had it come back in Illinois. And to hear that you have it come back in Vermont or even oregano, it's so now
yeah,
I know I need to go to my local growers because what I
yeah.
plant don't come back. Marjoram never comes back for me.
And I think part of it is where it's planted and we mulch it in the winter, so that might be part of it. But there are many plants that I grew up in Delaware, and my mom always had a greenhouse, and so things that were always perennial there are not perennial here. So like lavender
Mm,
was really easy to grow there because you plant it once and it stays. But here it's like you have to it's hit or miss. In Delaware, like our rosemary became more of like a bush where it actually had like thick stems on it. And here, like I can't really get rosemary to come back for me. Some people dig it up and bring it inside and then replant it
mhm.
in the spring, but I haven't. Only 1 year were we able to grow the rosemary indoors. It just doesn't quite do it. But yeah, I would say
Yeah,
check with your local garden center and see. This one particular sage plant that I have in the school garden is really well established, and it's just like really happy where it's at.
that's good.
In my home garden, my sage came back for several years, probably at least 3 or 4 years, and then last spring it wasn't there anymore. It like had disappeared. So,
Mhm.
it's each year it's a little bit different, and yeah, but I think that there are varieties that will come back. So definitely good to check into.
Have you ever tried thyme?
Yes, I love that. Yeah, the little
Okay.
creeping time, and the also the we have that in so I have like a one variety that's a little bit more, it's a time that's creeping, so it's a low cover one. But it's a little bit more upright and sort of like bright green and kind of perky. But then I have a different kind of time that has taken over part of my yard, which I'm super happy about because it's like it really it's low and it's more probably because it's been mowed, it's more dense and like a little bit woodier, but it has these really beautiful tiny purple flowers in late summer. So thyme is one that I really like. I think thyme would be really good in a garden too that has or having like a special like at the edge of a garden having some low growing things where like your infants could be, you know,
Yeah.
for home programs or mix or centers that have infants. I think thyme is a really great one and it has a real pungent flavor to it
It's
too.
smell. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, I wish we could do some garden tours. Like we could just, you know, go over to Shanda in Idaho and drop down over to Sue's house in Illinois. You guys come up to Vermont, you know, it
Mhm.
would be good. Um, but yeah, so I hopefully you've got some takeaways from tonight's session. I certainly can hang on for a few more minutes. I'm not in a huge rush, but you know, I was going to mention the one of the books. I interviewed her a while back on her and I were chatting. It's like a 20-minute YouTube video that I did a couple of years ago. But this book, it's not just about educator wellness. It's called Eco Happiness. Um, Fun nature activities to help your kids feel happier and calmer. And it's written by Sandy Schwartz.
Mhm.
This one, it's she used to work for the Children in Nature Network, so she really understands the work that we do as nature-based educators. But this one is a would be a good one to have. The chapters have. Let me just go back to the front here. Um, there's, you know, chapters on like chapter one is about how nature heals, chapter two is mindfulness, awe and gratitude, chapter three, outdoor play and adventure, creative arts, animals, food, and volunteering. Like those are the main topics. But this I think would be a really great one to share if you have a shelf in your program for books that families could share. I think this is a good one. It just gives families ideas about, you know, things that they can do outside to find that um, eco happiness. To raise calmer, happier, healthier children. There's lots of activities in there, and you know, I think the main thing is just head outside, right? Like, go out there, do the thing. And I just love one of the I'm not going to name names, but one of the folks on here has taken classes for me for a long time, and she has shared. She doesn't really like nature. And so I love the fact that she puts the time and energy into really thinking about, even if it's not her thing, knowing that nature is important and trying to find ways to get more of it into her program. And so I think that, you know, I think that's pretty awesome too. But thanks so much for being here. I hope you guys have a great night. And yeah, I think it's springtime. Yay, we can garden. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you, April. Have a good
Yeah,
night.
thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.